Dr. Emily Thompson stood before the Galactic Communication Council's central chamber, her tentacled colleagues shifting uncomfortably in their crystalline seats. The massive holographic display behind her showed an impossible reading. Absolute silence from Sector 7. Grid 238.9. In 10,000 years of cosmic surveillance, such a void had never been recorded. Distinguished members of the Council, she began, her voice steady despite the career-ending implications of her report. For the past 3 standard cycles, our long-range telepathic probes have detected a complete absence of signals from this sector. Not interference, not static, absolute silence. High Chancellor Xirax, their crystalline form shimmering with agitation, leaned forward. Impossible. Every sentient species broadcasts their thoughts, their dreams, their very existence into the cosmic consciousness. It is the fundamental nature of life itself. Emily pulled up another hologram, this one showing energy readings. We detected advanced technological signatures consistent with a spacefaring civilization. Power grids, atmospheric modifications, artificial satellites. But she paused, knowing her next words would sound absurd. They're completely dark on the psychic spectrum. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Councillor Vexthor, representing the Hive consortiums, vibrated their sensory stalks in disbelief. Perhaps your equipment is malfunctioning, Dr. Thompson. A civilization cannot advance without the shared consciousness that guides all species toward enlightenment. I've personally calibrated every scanner, Emily replied, bringing up diagnostic reports. I've even had my team construct new long-range probes specifically to investigate this anomaly. The results are consistent. Whoever inhabits this world has achieved technological advancement while maintaining complete psychic silence. The chamber erupted in overlapping telepathic broadcasts of concern and disbelief. Emily felt the pressure of their projected thoughts against her neural shields, a necessity for working with species who communicated as much through mental projection as through verbal speech. High Chancellor Xirax raised their crystalline appendages, calling for order. Dr. Thompson, you understand the implications of your report. In all recorded history, only the dead worlds maintain such silence. Even the youngest spacefaring races project their achievements proudly across the cosmos. I understand completely, Chancellor. Emily squared her shoulders. That's why I'm requesting permission to lead an expedition to Sector 7. If there truly is a civilization that has evolved without psychic connectivity, the implications for our understanding of sentient development would be revolutionary. Or devastating, Councillor Vexthor interjected. A species that maintains such silence. What are they hiding? What thoughts do they keep locked away? It goes against every natural law we know. Emily advanced to her final slide, a compilation of energy signatures that painted a picture of a thriving world. With respect, Counselor, perhaps it's time to re-examine our laws. These readings suggest a population of billions, with technology advanced enough for lunar colonization. They've achieved this while remaining undetected by our standard scanning protocols. That alone deserves investigation. The council chamber fell into what for them was an uncomfortable silence, though Emily could still feel the buzz of their telepathic deliberations washing against her shields. Finally, High Chancellor Xirax spoke. Dr. Thompson, your reputation for thoroughness is well known. However, this report contradicts fundamental principles of galactic society. If there truly is a civilization in Sector 7, their silence represents either a technological achievement beyond our understanding, or a threat we cannot ignore. Emily felt her heart sink as the Chancellor's crystalline form shifted to a deeper, more formal blue. Until we can verify your findings through independent means, you are relieved of your duties at the Signal Corps. We cannot risk panic spreading through the connected worlds based on what must be a technical malfunction. As Emily gathered her data crystals, she caught Councillor Vexthor broadcasting a particularly smug thought. Asterisk, better to lose one career than destabilize the foundations of our society, asterisk. But walking out of the chamber, Emily allowed herself a small smile. They had missed the most fascinating part of her discovery. The silence from Sector 7 wasn't empty. Within that void, she had detected patterns. Complex, encrypted, deliberate patterns that suggested whoever lived there wasn't just silent. They had chosen to be silent, and she was going to find out why. Commander Jake Martinez stood at the helm of the Thought Weaver, watching Earth's night side rotate into view. The sight stopped his breath. A glittering web of city lights sprawled across continents, more beautiful than any bioluminescent gardens of Thylax Prime. But it wasn't the lights that made his hands tremble on the control panel. It was the silence. Running another diagnostic on the telepathic arrays, his first officer, Kvex, announced. The Thylaxian's tentacles wavered anxiously over the sensor panel. Still nothing. It's like trying to read the thoughts of space itself. Keep us in high orbit, Jake ordered, fighting the instinctive panic that came with such profound psychic emptiness. Born to human parents but raised among the Thylaxians after a first contact incident, he had never experienced such complete mental isolation. Launched the stealth probes. The Thought Weaver deployed its surveillance array, state-of-the-art technology designed to map the psychic emissions of developing worlds. The data streams coming back painted an impossible picture. "Commander," Kvex called out, their voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting thousands of artificial satellites, communication networks, defense systems, observation platforms, but they're all encrypted." Jake leaned over the display, his expertise in both human and Thylaxian technology giving him unique insight. They're not broadcasting openly. Every transmission is targeted, coded, wrapped in layers of security protocols. He shook his head in amazement. They're not silent because they can't communicate. They're silent because they choose to be. A sudden alert blared through the bridge. Kvex's tentacles coiled in alarm. "Commander, multiple tracking systems just locked onto our position. They saw through our cloaking field." "Impossible," Jake muttered, but the evidence was clear. Somehow, Earth's primitive tracking systems had detected their most advanced stealth technology. As if to confirm this, a tight beam transmission cut through their communications buffer. Unidentified vessel, a calm, professional voice spoke in perfect English. "This is Captain Lisa Chen of the International Space Defense Force. Your cloaking technology is impressive, but we've been tracking you since you entered the solar system. Please maintain your current orbit and prepare for contact." The bridge crew stared at Jake, their tentacles writhing in collective shock. Not only had humans detected them, but they'd been watching silently, waiting to reveal themselves at the perfect moment. They knew we were here the whole time. Kvex whispered. "How can they coordinate such actions without telepathic consensus?" Jake felt a surge of pride in his human heritage. They use something more secure than telepathy. They use trust, training, and technology that doesn't rely on broadcasting their intentions to the entire galaxy. Another vessel appeared on their sensors, rising from Earth's atmosphere with barely a whisper of energy output. Its design was sleek, practical, and completely unlike anything in the Council's database. As it matched orbit with the Thought Weaver, Jake made a decision that would change galactic society forever. "Open a channel," he commanded. "Tight beam only, encrypted according to Earth protocols." He smiled at his crew's confusion. "It's time we learned to speak their language, the language of silence." Captain Chen's face appeared on the main screen, her expression professional, but with a hint of amusement. "Commander Martinez, I presume. Welcome home. Though I have to ask, did you really think we wouldn't notice our first expatriate coming back for a visit?" Jake laughed, suddenly feeling more at home in the silence than he ever had in the constant telepathic chatter of Thylax Prime. "Honestly, Captain, I'm starting to think there's a lot about Earth that the galaxy has failed to notice." "That's been by design, Commander." Chen's smile held secrets that made Jake's diplomatic training tingle with warning and excitement. "Now, would you like to learn why humanity chose silence? Because I promise you, it's not what the Council fears. It's something far more interesting. As the two ships began their synchronized descent toward Earth, Jake realized that the void he feared wasn't empty at all. It was filled with something the connected species of the galaxy have forgotten how to appreciate. The power of choosing when to speak, when to listen, and when to keep one's own counsel. And somewhere in that silence lay humanity's greatest strength. Major Amanda Cooper watched the alien delegation materialize in the secure meeting room of Special Operations Command, their forms shimmering with barely contained agitation. Her neural dampeners hummed quietly, protecting her mind from what her team had dubbed cosmic chatter, the constant stream of telepathic noise that seemed as natural as breathing to most galactic species. Ambassador Zixtel stepped forward, his crystalline form refracting light across the reinforced walls. Major Cooper, I must protest. These dampening devices are most discourteous. How can we establish proper diplomatic relations if we cannot share thoughts? That's exactly why we're meeting here, Ambassador. Amanda gestured to the chairs arranged around a polished conference table. On Earth, we believe the most important conversations happen face-to-face, with words chosen carefully and thoughts kept private until they're ready to be shared. The ambassador's aide, a young Thylaxian named Vera, touched one of her tendrils to a data crystal. Our research shows that human children exhibit minor telepathic potential. Yet somehow, your species deliberately evolved away from this capability. It defies all known development patterns. Amanda smiled, remembering the first time she'd encountered alien telepathy during training. We didn't evolve away from it, Ms. Vira. We evolved something better. The ability to keep our thoughts to ourselves until we choose to share them. To plan, to surprise, to innovate without broadcasting our ideas to potential competitors. But the isolation. Zixtal's form flickered with distress. How do you not go mad, trapped alone with your thoughts? We're never truly alone, Amanda replied, activating a holographic display. Look at this. The room filled with a real-time visualization of Earth's communication networks, millions of secure channels, encrypted data streams, and tightly controlled broadcasts. We've built something more secure than telepathy, more private than shared consciousness, and more reliable than emotional broadcasting. Zixtel moved closer to the display, his crystalline structure vibrating with curiosity. Fascinating. But surely you see the benefits of joining the Galactic Communion. Allow me to demonstrate. The ambassador's form began to glow, attempting to project his thoughts directly into the humans' minds. Amanda watched with professional interest as his telepathic probe encountered her neural dampeners and simply slid away. Impossible. Zixtel stumbled back, experiencing something entirely new, a failed mental connection. Your barriers, they're not technology. They're natural. Evolution's gift to a species that learned the value of privacy, Amanda confirmed. Our thoughts are our own, Ambassador. We share them through choice, not compulsion. Through trust, not technology. Commander Martinez, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. Sir, if I may, having lived among both humans and Thylaxians, I can tell you that Earth's silence isn't a weakness. It's a strength that the Council hasn't yet understood. Amanda nodded gratefully to Martinez before turning back to their increasingly frustrated visitors. Let me show you something. She pressed a button, and the room's screens came to life with images from human history. Every major breakthrough, every revolutionary invention, every leap forward came from individuals who stepped back from the crowd to think differently. Our silence gave us space to innovate. But the Council's protocols, Vera began, will need to adapt, Amanda finished firmly. Because humanity isn't going to change who we are. We've built our civilization on the principle that every mind deserves its privacy, every thought deserves its time to develop, and every idea deserves the chance to grow in silence before facing the noise of the universe. Zixtel's color shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. You speak of silence as if it's a gift. Because it is. Amanda stood, her posture straight and proud. And if the council is willing to listen, really listen, not just with their telepathy but with their understanding, they might discover that the quiet they fear so much contains wonders they never imagined. As if to emphasize her point, the neural dampeners pulsed once, creating a moment of perfect silence in the room. In that silence, watching the aliens' growing comprehension, Amanda saw the first bridge being built between two very different ways of existing in the cosmos. Sometimes, she thought, the most important messages are conveyed not in what you broadcast, but in what you choose to keep quiet. Lieutenant Ryan Walker drifted through the International Space Station's new xenological observation deck, watching the patterns of ships avoiding Earth's space lanes. Where once curious alien vessels had crowded the edges of their solar system, now they gave Earth a wide berth, their energy signatures betraying their fear. Another Hive Consortium fleet just changed course. His AI assistant, ARIA, reported. That's the third trading convoy this week to abandon their earthbound route. Ryan pressed his hand against the transparent aluminum window, tracking the distant flickers of fleeing ships. They're treating silence like it's contagious, ARIA, as if they might lose their precious telepathic connection just by getting too close. A sudden alert flashed across his neural link. Lieutenant, detecting a distress signal. Empathic World's vessel, approximately 300,000 kilometers out. Their primary consciousness core is failing. Ryan's training kicked in instantly. Plot an intercept course, and get me Captain Chen. Sir, Aria's voice held a note of concern. The empathic worlds declared us a threat yesterday. Any contact might be seen as hostile. They can see it however they want after we save their lives. Ryan pushed off toward the emergency response bay. Deploy Rescue Shuttle Delta. Passive systems only. No active broadcasts. The next 20 minutes were a carefully orchestrated dance of silence. The rescue shuttle approached the dying alien vessel without a single transmission, using only pre-programmed light signals to indicate their intentions. Ryan watched through the shuttle's cameras as the empathic crew's bioluminescent forms flickered in panic. They're losing cohesion, Ariya reported. Without their consciousness core, they can't maintain their group mind. Individual awareness is traumatic for them. Ryan made a decision. Deploy the emergency telepathic dampeners. Sir, that will cut them off completely. Better than letting the feedback tear their minds apart. Ryan activated the shuttle's docking sequence. Sometimes you have to embrace the silence to survive it. The rescue operation was unlike anything in Council records. Human engineers worked in perfect coordination, without a single telepathic broadcast, using hand signals and text displays to communicate. The empathic crew, forced into individual consciousness for the first time in their lives, watched in astonishment as their ship was saved by beings who thrived in mental isolation. Hours later, with the alien vessel's systems restored and its crew safely reconnected, Ryan received an unexpected message. The empathic captain requested a private audience, something unheard of in their society. Lieutenant Walker, the captain's form pulsed with soft colors as they met in the station's diplomatic chamber. I experienced something extraordinary today. In the silence of your dampening field, I had my first individual thought. It was, they paused, searching for words, terrifying, beautiful, free. Ryan nodded, understanding the magnitude of this admission. Silence doesn't have to mean isolation, Captain. Sometimes it's just the space we need to hear our own thoughts clearly. The Council fears what they don't understand, the captain continued. They fear a species that can function without constant connection, that can keep secrets, that can think. Their lights flickered in amazement, independently. And yet here you are, having a private conversation. Ryan smiled. Seems like maybe humanity isn't the only species capable of learning new ways to exist. The captain's colors shifted to a decisive pattern. I will speak to my people. Your silence saved our lives today. Not just our bodies, but our minds. Perhaps it's time the galaxy learned that there are different kinds of connection, different ways to communicate. As the empathic vessel departed, maintaining a respectful, calm silence until they cleared Earth's space, Ryan received messages from across the sector. Other ships were watching, other species witnessing how humanity's limitation had become a strength. "Aria," he called out, watching the distant ship's patterns slowly change. "Log a new diplomatic observation. Sometimes the loudest message is the one you don't broadcast." "Noted, Lieutenant," the AI responded, "though I suspect the galaxy is about to get a lot quieter, and a lot more interesting because of it." Ryan smiled, watching Earth rise over the horizon, its silence no longer a void in space, but a beacon of something new. The power of choosing when to reach out, and when to stand alone in the vastness of space. Dr. Michael O'Connor had spent 15 years studying human consciousness. Now, watching the Council's massive telepathic amplifiers power up around Earth, he wished he had more time to warn them about what they were about to discover. "Final warning received from the Council fleet," his assistant reported. "They're demanding we accept enlightenment or face forced integration into the Galactic psychic network." Michael adjusted his neural dampeners, watching the energy readings spike on his quantum consciousness monitors. "They still think we're blocking the signals deliberately. That our silence is technological." He shook his head. "They have no idea what they're about to hit." The amplifiers fired. Across Earth, 8 billion humans went about their daily lives, their minds naturally armored against the incoming telepathic tsunami. But in space, the Council's most powerful psychic technology slammed into humanity's collective mental barrier and shattered. Emergency alerts blazed across Michael's screens. "Sir, the amplifiers are experiencing some kind of feedback loop. The energy readings are off the charts." Through the observatory's windows, Michael watched the massive alien devices begin to overload, their crystalline structures fracturing under the strain of trying to pierce humanity's natural defenses. "Send an emergency broadcast to the Council fleet. Tell them to power down immediately or—" Too late. The amplifiers exploded in a spectacular display of psychic energy, sending ripples of disruption through the entire galactic communication network. In an instant, every telepathic species within a light-year experienced something unprecedented: total mental silence. "Get me the emergency channel to Ambassador Zixtal," Michael ordered, watching the chaos unfold. It's time they learned the truth about human consciousness. An hour later, in the hastily convened emergency session, Michael stood before the holographic projections of the Council leaders. Their forms flickered with distress, still reeling from the psychic backlash. "What you encountered wasn't a barrier," Michael explained, bringing up his research data. "It's the fundamental nature of human consciousness. We evolved in mental isolation, developing natural quantum fields that make our thoughts inherently private." He displayed a series of brain scans. Every human mind exists in its own quantum bubble, naturally resistant to external psychic influence. "We're not blocking you out. We're simply existing as we evolved to exist." Ambassador Zixtal's form pulsed with realization. "The dampening technology we detected is defensive, not offensive," Michael finished. "It protects us from the constant barrage of telepathic noise that your species consider normal. Without it, your broadcasts would be like trying to sleep next to a psychic rock concert." He brought up new data, showing the amplifier destruction. "When you tried to force your way in, you hit 8 billion quantum barriers simultaneously. The feedback, well, you saw what happened." "Impossible," one of the Council members whispered. "No species can evolve such perfect mental isolation." "Perfect." Michael laughed softly. "Hardly. We're social creatures, desperate to connect. We just learned to do it differently. Through words chosen carefully, through art that speaks without speaking, through the thousand subtle ways humans communicate without broadcasting our every thought to the cosmos." He showed them historical records of human development. Every breakthrough, every innovation, came from minds that could think privately, dream secretly, imagine without interference. Our silence isn't a weakness or a choice. It's the foundation of who we are. The council chamber fell quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't rejected their enlightenment. They had evolved beyond the need for it. Your amplifiers didn't fail because they weren't strong enough. Michael continued. They failed because they encountered something they weren't designed to handle, minds that had evolved to be fundamentally, unalterably free. Ambassador Zixtel's form shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. Then we have much to learn about different forms of consciousness. And perhaps, the alien's voice held a note of wonder, perhaps much to learn about the strength that can be found in silence. As the emergency session ended, Michael received an urgent message from Orbital Defense. Unknown ships were appearing at the edge of the system, ships broadcasting no signals at all. The silence humanity had evolved to create was about to become their greatest weapon. And not a moment too soon. Colonel Jessica Hawkins stared at the tactical display in Earth's Cyber Command Center, watching as another connected world went dark. Not the natural darkness of human minds, but the terrifying silence of a civilization screaming its last thoughts into the void. Zoraxian swarm ships detected in the Proxima Centauri system, her tactical officer reported. They're using the Council's own telepathic network to spread panic ahead of their advance. 47 worlds have already fallen. Jessica's fingers flew across the quantum-encrypted controls, analyzing the attack pattern. 20 years of cyber warfare experience had taught her to see order in chaos, and this chaos was speaking volumes. Look at this, she highlighted a series of signal disruptions. They're not just attacking randomly. They're systematically taking down the nodes of the Galactic communication network. Each fallen world becomes a dead zone that forces surviving planets to route their telepathic signals through compromised sectors. Ambassador Zixtel's hologram flickered beside her station, his crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. The Zoraxian hive is using our unity against us. When one world panics, the fear spreads instantly through the network. We cannot coordinate our defenses without broadcasting our plans to the enemy. Because you never learned to fight in silence, Jessica murmured, seeing the pattern clearly now. Your greatest strength became your greatest vulnerability. She brought up Earth's deep space scans, showing the Zoraxian advance. The swarm moved like a virus through the galaxy's neural network, using the very connections that united the Council worlds to tear them apart. Signal from the Arcturus defense fleet, her AI announced. They're gone. Total cognitive overload. The Zoraxians broadcasted some kind of psychic weapon through the network. Jessica slammed her fist on the console. That's it. Captain Chen, are you seeing this? The Space Force commander's face appeared on screen. Already on it, Colonel. The Zoraxians can only attack worlds connected to the network. And there's only one civilization that's never been connected. Us. Jessica's mind raced with possibilities. We're not just immune to their psychic weapons, we're invisible to their primary method of attack. Ambassador, I need every surviving Council ship to rendezvous at Earth, immediately. But the Zoraxian swarm. We'll never see it coming. Jessica's eyes gleamed with the thrill of strategy, because for the first time in galactic history, being disconnected is going to save everyone. The next hours were a blur of activity. Council ships arrived in waves, their crews terrified but hopeful. Human neural dampeners were distributed, teaching ancient telepathic species something they'd never imagined: how to be silent. In the command center, Jessica unveiled her plan. The Zoraxians expect connected worlds. Civilizations that can't help but broadcast their movements, their fears, their defensive strategies. Instead, they're going to face something they've never encountered. An enemy they can't sense coming. She displayed the attack simulation. Earth's quantum encryption, combined with our natural psychic invisibility, means we can coordinate a multi-pronged assault that's completely invisible to their detection systems. They've never fought an enemy they couldn't mentally track. Ambassador Zixtel's form brightened with understanding. You want us to fight, like humans, in silence. I want you to fight smarter than humans, Jessica corrected. You have abilities we don't, but you never learn to use them selectively, strategically. Today, that changes. She looked around the room, at aliens learning to embrace the silence they once feared, at humans teaching the art of quiet warfare to species that had never known mental privacy. The Zoraxians think they found the perfect weapon, she continued, turning connection into vulnerability. But they don't understand that true strength isn't in being always connected or always silent. It's in knowing when to be which. As the combined fleet prepared for humanity's first galactic battle, Jessica received an unexpected message from her ally. Colonel, the Zoraxian swarm has changed course. They're heading straight for Earth. They've finally noticed the silence. Jessica smiled grimly. Good. Let them come to the quietest grave they'll ever find. The war for the galaxy was about to begin. And for once, silence would be its herald. The International Space Station, now transformed into the most unconventional military academy in history, hummed with controlled chaos as Colonel Jessica Hawkins strode through its newly expanded training deck. Around her, telepathic species learned something they'd never imagined necessary: how to think without broadcasting. Again, she ordered, watching a group of crystalline Silaxians struggle with their exercises. Remember, communication isn't about projecting every thought. It's about choosing the right thought at the right moment. In the station's tactical bay, Captain Lisa Chen worked with another group, teaching them Earth's encrypted quantum communication protocols. Think of it like whispering, she explained to a frustrated, empathic world's warrior. Your telepathy doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can learn to direct it, focus it, use it as precisely as a laser beam instead of a supernova. The Zoraxian swarm was now just 3 systems away, their advance slowed by the unexpected resistance of newly silent worlds that had learned from Earth. Status report, Jessica called out, entering the command center where Dr. Michael O'Connor monitored the neural training progress. Better than expected, he replied, displaying the latest data. Their natural telepathic abilities, when combined with our quantum encryption technology, are creating something entirely new. Watch this. On the training floor below, a team of mixed species demonstrated their new capabilities. A Xilaxian officer transmitted a complex battle plan to his squad, the message invisible to all but its intended recipients. An empathic warrior launched a focused telepathic probe that penetrated enemy defenses without alerting their entire network. They're not just learning to be silent, Michael noted with satisfaction. They're learning to weaponize silence itself. Jessica nodded, remembering her own words from weeks ago. The art of knowing when to speak, when to whisper, and when to say nothing at all. A priority alert flashed across her neural link. Colonel. Araya's voice was urgent. Zoraxian advance fleet detected on the edge of the solar system. They're moving differently than before. Jessica rushed to the tactical display, Chen joining her moments later. The enemy ships moved with uncharacteristic caution, their usual overwhelming psychic assault notably absent. They can't sense us, Chen realized, a smile spreading across her face. For the first time in their history, they're fighting blind. Jessica activated the station-wide comm. All units, this is Colonel Hawkins. Operation Dark Shield is now in effect. Execute primary defense pattern. Silently. Across the solar system, the greatest military feat in human history began without a single broadcast signal. Ships moved in perfect coordination, guided by encrypted quantum bursts too precise for the Zoraxians' psychic network to detect. Earth's orbital platforms, hidden beneath layers of psychic dampening fields, waited in perfect stillness. The first Zoraxian ships entered the killing zone, their powers useless against an enemy they couldn't mentally detect. As their scouts probed forward, searching desperately for the familiar touch of telepathic emissions, Earth's fleet struck from a dozen directions at once. Look at their formation, Chen marveled, watching the enemy ships break ranks in confusion. They literally don't know how to fight without their psychic advantage. In the chaos of battle, Jessica watched their newly trained allies put their skills to devastating use. Empathic warriors turned their telepathic abilities into precise weapons, targeting individual Zoraxian ships with focused mental strikes instead of broad psychic broadcasts. Silexian cruisers moved in perfect formation without sending a single detectable command. Signal from the Arcturus Defense Fleet. Araya announced. The Zoraxian rearguard is retreating from their sector. They're calling it the Dead Zone strategy. Other worlds are beginning to adopt our methods. Jessica allowed herself a moment of pride. Humanity's greatest perceived weakness had become the galaxy's salvation, not because silence was stronger than connection, but because they had taught the connected species something precious, the power of choosing their moments. As the battle raged on, Earth stood as a beacon of a new kind of warfare, one that proved that true strength lay not in constant communication or perfect silence, but in the wisdom to know when each was needed. And in the darkness of space, the Zoraxian swarm learned a harsh lesson. Sometimes the deadliest predator is the one you never hear coming. Captain Thomas Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber, Earth visible as a blue jewel through the crystalline windows. Below him, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what historians would later call the Quiet Revolution. The final Zoraxian swarm retreated beyond the galactic rim. Ambassador Zixtal announced, his crystalline form gleaming with newfound confidence. Thanks to Earth's Dark Shield protocols, over 300 worlds have now established autonomous defense networks. We are, for the first time, secure in our silence. Thomas watched the assembled species with quiet pride. Former telepathic broadcasters now moved with measured control, their thoughts contained and directed rather than sprayed across the cosmos. The change wasn't just military, it was cultural, fundamental. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, he addressed the chamber, his voice carrying easily through the hushed space. Humanity didn't teach you to be silent. We taught you something far more valuable. The power of choice. A holographic displays activated, showing the new galactic order. Worlds pulsed with controlled signals, their telepathic emissions now precise and purposeful rather than constant broadcasts. Trade routes ran dark except for encrypted quantum bursts, invisible to all but their intended recipients. In learning to be silent, Thomas continued, you've discovered what humanity knew all along. True connection isn't about constant communication. It's about trust, about knowing when to reach out and when to stand apart, about creating spaces where thoughts can grow without interference. Dr. Emily Thompson, now director of the new Galactic Communication Institute, stepped forward. The same scientist who had first discovered Earth's silence now led the revolution in cosmic consciousness. Our latest findings confirm it, she reported, displaying neural mapping data. Species that adopt selective telepathic control show a 300% increase in technological innovation. It turns out that some thoughts need silence to flourish. The chamber hummed with controlled excitement, no longer the chaotic telepathic broadcasts of the past, but measured exchanges between minds that had learned the art of restraint. But the greatest discovery, Emily continued, wasn't technological at all. In learning to be silent, many species discovered parts of themselves they never knew existed. Individual thoughts, personal dreams, the joy of a private moment. Thomas moved to the central platform, where a new monument was about to be unveiled. Earth no longer stands alone in its silence. We stand as one galaxy that has learned to embrace both connection and solitude, both community and independence. The monument shimmered into view, a crystalline structure that pulsed with gentle light, its patterns complex but controlled. Each facet represented a different species' contribution to the new galactic order, some radiating with telepathic energy, others wrapped in quiet darkness, all working in harmony. The Zoraxians taught us that too much connection creates vulnerability, Thomas said. Humanity taught you that too much isolation breeds stagnation. But together, we found balance. As if to demonstrate, a Hive Consortium ship glided past the chamber windows, its crew now capable of individual thought, while maintaining their collective consciousness. Nearby, an empathic world's destroyer moved in perfect silence, its warriors having mastered the art of telepathic stealth. This is not the end of galactic communication, Thomas concluded. It's the beginning of true understanding. Each species, each world, each individual now has the freedom to choose their level of connection, to speak or to listen, to broadcast or to shield, to be part of the cosmic chorus or to dance alone in the quiet of space. The chamber erupted in a controlled celebration, a symphony of purposeful telepathic exchanges mixed with peaceful silences. Earth's feared silence had become the galaxy's most precious gift, the power of choice. As the ceremonies concluded, Thomas received one final message from Colonel Hawkins back on Earth. "The galaxy's a lot quieter now, Captain. Think we'll get bored?" Thomas smiled, watching the newly enlightened species moving through space with newfound grace and purpose. "No, Colonel. I think we'll finally hear what the universe has been trying to tell us all along. Sometimes the most profound messages come wrapped in silence." And in the vast expanse of space, the galaxy continued its eternal dance, no longer a chaos of constant communication, but a beautiful balance of sound and silence, of connection and solitude, of unity and independence. The cosmic quiet had become a symphony.